Alright. Alright. That works. That works. That works. Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you so much for coming to this presentation. Today we're going to be going over the open source project Ollama, which is we'll be learning about what it can do, how you can use it, how you can, a lot of the main features of it, and we're also going to be exploring using the Gemma 3 Google model on Ollama. So this is a talk all about running language models on your own hardware. Before we get started, my name is Stuart Bowman. I'm a software engineer by trade. Worked in software professionally for about 9 years. I've worked here at Atomic Robot for a few years. I've worked with a company called Stack Construction Technologies in the Blue Ash area. And I've been through a whole bunch of different technologies and stuff, mobile development, web development, back-end stuff. And I grew up here around the Cincinnati, Mason area. So, yeah. Another note before we get started. So, for those of you working on this, trying to follow along on this at home, before you use Gemma, you should go ahead and check out the terms for Gemma, and there's a link for requesting access to Gemma on Kaggle. And also be sure to check out the user guide on what the permitted use cases, or rather non-permitted use cases of Gemma. So, quick agenda. We're going to go over what is Ollama, what are its main features. We're going to show Ollama running Gemma 3 locally, and how to do that. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the Ollama API endpoints that are pre-built and ready to go. And we'll be talking about running Ollama within containers as well. And then we'll touch briefly on customizing models to your liking using Ollama. So what is it? This is my own personal definition or whatever, but Ollama is a software that provides the ability to host and customize language models. One of the things that I find really fascinating about the whole thing is that you have the ability to host this whole thing on your own hardware. You can run various different models that are supplied by different organizations, and you can customize them to your liking and to your need, and you could even deploy them as part of your own project. So some of the main features as we talk through running through Ollama, on the CLI in particular, you'll notice there's some, if you've worked with Docker before, there's some significant similarities with the Docker CLI and similar concepts. It has the ability for pushing and pulling models, running and stopping models on your system, listing the ones that are running, and listing the ones that are downloaded that can be run. It also has the ability to host and run multiple models at once on your own hardware. And it has a concept of a model file, which again, if you have worked with Docker before, Docker has their Docker files for building system images. Likewise with Ollama, you can take an existing model and using a model file, customize your own version of that. And we'll touch on that a little bit later here in the presentation. And they have support for running Ollama in conjunction with certain GPUs as well. But of course, you can also run it straight on CPU. Some of the specs of the project itself. So Ollama is written in Go. You can check out the source code on GitHub. It leverages a tensor library from an organization called GGML to do inferences. If you've heard of llama.cpp, that's made by GGML. The Ollama project software is available for Mac, Windows, and Linux, and it also has a Docker image, which we'll touch on that a little bit later. It's really quite easy to set up. It's surprisingly easy to set up Ollama and get it running on a system pretty quickly. And the project is MIT licensed as well, which is awesome to see. There's a little link at the bottom that talks about, mentions Ollama using GGML, the GGML inferencing library. So, let's see a quick tour of the CLI. Once you've got Ollama installed to run a model, it's literally that simple. Ollama run, and then the model name that you want to use. If it doesn't have that, like for example, you don't have that model downloaded, it'll go ahead and pull it. Again, it's very similar to the concept of like when you're running a Docker container and you reference the Docker container that you're trying to run, and it's like, oh, yep, I'm going to go ahead and pull that down. Once it finishes pulling that down, you'll see there's those 3 arrows, and it sends you straight into a chat terminal that you can just start chatting with the model. There's also a handful of commands that we'll look at here in a moment when we do a quick demo. But yeah, you can just start chatting away right there in the terminal. It's pretty awesome. It's extremely easy to get up and running. So yeah, chatting in the terminal, go ahead and ask a question. It'll give you the response back, and then you can continue that thread as desired. To list the available commands, list some available commands that you can use in the terminal chat, just do a /?. Again, here's a handful of them. So we have, so like showing different values for this model, such as like the system message. You can clear the context. So if you are wanting to completely change direction in terms of what you're talking about, that's a great avenue to clear everything. And then to exit out, you can just do /by. And then there's also support for multi-line messaging as well. So if you have a big block of text, you can do 3 sets of double quotes and then type multi-line strings as much as you want, and then end it with another 3 double quotes. Again, exiting the chat and /by, or you can do Control-D to get back to your main bash shell or whatever shell you're using. And seeing what's running. So we say you've run your model, you've exited out of the chat terminal. That model is actually still in memory, and you can see what is in memory and for how long using Ollama PS. In this case, we had a Gemma 3 model, and it's going to be loaded in memory for a few more minutes before it gets dropped from memory. And another interesting thing to point out here on this screen is the context size. Oh, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. So if you, by default, it's going to keep the model in memory for 5 minutes after you're done interacting with it. You can keep it in memory by using the keep alive flag and put in an additional amount of time that you want to keep it loaded. This is what I was getting to next. So the context length. So Gemma 3, for example, has a much larger context. Is compatible with a much larger context window than what is seen here. But Ollama defaults to a 4096 context limit. There is documentation on how to change this, and if you are deploying something for production, or if you're using a model for an extended amount of interactions, I would definitely recommend extending that. But for simple playing around and stuff, it works fine. So we've seen chatting within the terminal, great place to start and kick things off. Ollama recently, last year in 2025, released a GUI app for Mac and Windows that also is another avenue by which you can chat with their models. Ollama also has HTTP APIs allowing interactions with models, so you can build your own interface however you see fit. And it's really handy that the API is already built. You can just send it JSON payloads, and again, we'll go through that here momentarily. And you can again host Ollama from a Docker container and chat externally from within that. So, all right, so we've got some screenshots and talked about it for a little bit. So let's actually see a live demo here. So over here, I have my terminal. I've got Ollama already installed on the system. To see what models that I have available to me ready to go, I can do Ollama ls. And you can see I have Gemma there installed already. I can do Ollama run Gemma 3. And that drops us into a terminal chat window there. I'm gonna start by just, hello, what's up? And you can see it gives us a whole, it starts giving us text very quickly. We take a look at some of the commands that we have available to ourselves. So we got the show and set value, set commands. So like for instance, if I do show, there's various different information that I can see that I can look into. So if I wanted to see the license, for example, that the model is licensed under, it prints out the license for us there. If I wanted to see the system prompt or parameters, show info. So we can see the context length for Gemma 3 is 131,000. And again, if you wanted to do other things like setting the system prompt, the set command can do that for you. Take a look at some of these commands again. Let's say we wanted to clear our session context. Again, that's really just /clear. It doesn't clear your screen, but I believe if you do Control-L while you're still in the chat terminal, it'll at least make it appear like your terminal is cleared. I think it actually, yeah, it's still above there, but it at least gets it back up to the top of the window for you. And then, yeah, if we exit here, we can do buy, and then we're back out, Ollama, PS. And this Gemma 3 instance I've started before the presentation, and I've used the keep alive flag to keep it running for several hours, to keep it in memory. So really quite straightforward, very simple to interact with. All right, so we've talked about chatting through the terminal. If you're wanting to add Ollama as part of a product that a product or service that you're building, you're probably going to want to use. You're probably going to be interested in looking at the API endpoints that are available. And that's another really cool thing is like not only does this thing run the language models for you, but they have a pre-built API that you can basically just hit once you're hosting Ollama somewhere. So in this example here, we'll just send Gemma, we're going to send Gemma an API, a generate request, and ask it for a list of 5 fruits. and we get the whole response back in one piece. So when I'm doing this, doing this curl here, I don't get anything back until the whole thing comes back, which is useful enough for a simple example. In this next demo here, I'm doing the same request, but I'm setting stream to true, and we'll see that we get information back in pieces rather than just one big dump all at once. So this could be particularly useful for getting quicker feedback from the model than having to wait as long as it needs to generate that entire next message. So another common thing that we're interested in with interacting with the language model is trying to retain information between exchanges. In this example, I'm hitting the generate API, and I'm mentioning that my name is Stu. Please address me as Stu. We get a response back, and it acknowledges that, okay, yes, you are Stu. Very good. If I hit this endpoint again, same endpoint, asking it what my name is, it's not telling me that my name is Stu. So there's a different API that we need to use if we want to do this back and forth exchange and be able to retain information. For this, we'll use the chat API. It's another post request. It's very similar to the generate request, but we're going to send a list of messages, and we'll tag each message with who said which message, so it'll be either user or assistant. And so we can send chat history this way. We'll start the interaction again, same just as before. This time we're sending it just a single message. It's a list of messages and just a single message there. So, hey, my name's Stu. We get a message back. It acknowledges that, hey, I'm Stu. We then are going to take that highlighted bit from what we got back from that first curl, and we're going to put that into our next request. So the first curl we did had just a single message, and we got a single message back. This next curl that we're going to do is going to have my first message, the response from the assistant, and then my second message. And here we're ordering it by oldest to newest. And again, it's annotated here, showing which individual said which phrase, which message. And now when we do this request again, we're actually seeing that, hey, it does acknowledge that my name is Stu. So a bare bones example of just being able to retain message interactions back and forth. So some other API endpoints that I wanted to just touch on that Ollama provides. So they have a lot of these they have similar APIs for what is available in the CLI. So you can list what models are currently running. You can list what models, or you can pull models down, show tags, or rather get installed models, list running models, get information about a particular model, and pull model down from the Ollama library. And we'll see here shortly what happens if you try to send a message or hit one of the APIs to interact with the language model when you don't have the model pulled, and we'll see what that interaction looks like here. Okay, so next up, if you're going to deploy this, chances are you're probably going to be using containers or some sort of container orchestration to put this out to production for your users. So how can we get this? How can we get Ollama running in a container? Ollama provides their own container that you can go ahead and pull. You want to make sure that the Ollama service is not already running. If you're running their container locally on your own system, you want to make sure that you're not already running the localhost Ollama service on that same port, 11434. But in this example here, again, we just do a Docker run. I'm giving it a different port number, so I'm mapping it to port 4000 on my host system so that it's not conflicting and just on a separate port in general. And you've now got a container running with Ollama. It's really easy, really that easy. You don't have any models available yet on the container. So this is where it may be a good idea, again, depending on how your infrastructure is set up and everything, but it may be a good idea to use a Docker volume or something similar so that when your container stands up, it doesn't have to necessarily pull down the same model every single time. So if you were to use the command that I show here, Ollama would be available, but there wouldn't be any models ready to go out the gate. And if you close down that container and start it back up again, completely fresh, you would lose that model because there was no volume mounted to store it anywhere. So something to keep in mind. Once we have the container running, it's really just hitting the API again. In this case, though, as I was alluding to earlier, we hit this API. It's the chat API. But our container, we stood up our container and we didn't have any models downloaded. So we get a response back from that curl indicating, we don't have Gemma available. We can do another API request, doing the poll API, and just ask, with that payload there, model Gemma 3. It gave back this very long set of JSON status updates, I think. And then finally, when that was complete, we can try our chat request again. And this time we actually get a real response back. Again, just a reminder, once you kill and remove that container, if you don't have a volume or some other way, that you've stored it, that model is ephemeral, essentially. So cool. We've talked about running Gemma 3 completely locally. We've talked about running it, chatting through the terminal, chatting through APIs, pointing to a container. Now let's take a quick look at how you can customize existing models. So again, similar to how Docker has the concept of Docker files for making a new Docker image based on a previous Docker image, so too you can make your own custom model that is built from that's using an existing model that's already out there. In this example, it's literally just a 2-line model file. I'm referencing the Gemma 3 model, and in this one I'm specifying a system prompt, which will affect how it responds to user interactions. If we go ahead and build this from this custom model file, we can just do an Ollama create. I give it a name of whatever I want to call this new model. I called it cat model in this example. And then point it to the model file there. It goes ahead there. And then we see with Ollama ls, it's not running yet, mind you, but with the Ollama ls, we see that the cat model is now listed there, right beside our Gemma 3 model. And just like before, Ollama run cat model and ask it how it goes, and it responds with a meow. So yeah, that's the bulk of it. I have some further reading links as well. So the links for Ollama and GGML are up there. There's the blog post that goes into Ollama and using Ollama's usage of GGML inferencing library. I have some links there for Gemma itself. The Gemma, using Gemma on Ollama guide, that's from google.dev there. And a link on Kaggle for requesting access to Gemma and accepting their terms and license stuff. Some acknowledgements. Ollama itself, MIT licensed, available on GitHub. And then GGML, they have their own GitHub as well and their own separate website, ggml.ai. And again, acknowledgements for Gemma 3 being our primary demo model, our demo model for this presentation, and the prohibited uses and terms there as well. Before we're done though, I do have one extra bonus demo. So I was working on a small little project in Angular to literally show this in action, a custom built front end basically that hits the Ollama pre-built APIs. So I'm going to go swing over that now. So this is Lumber, language model, basic exchange renderer. It's a very simple Angular app that I've been working on. And I have up here the developer tools to show API calls specifically for Ollama happening here. So I can go ahead and say, hello, how are you? What is your name? And I don't have streaming turned on for this demo, so it'll take a moment, but there we go, we got a response. Hello there, doing well. Let's try, since we're using the chat API, we should be able to have chat history in our exchanges and retaining information there. So please address me as Stu. There we go. Okay, Stu, it's nice to meet you. What is my name? Stu. You told me your name is Stu. So yeah, this is like this is just the most basic front end, you know, for their API, of course. There is the ability also, although it's not in this demo, there is the ability to send picture information to Ollama by way of, I think it's base64 encoding image information. And you can also reference files from your disk when you're using the chat terminal, the terminal chat with Ollama. So yeah, quick little demo there. One thing that would really make this demo a little bit better is switching to using the streaming. So again, like if I look at the payload that we the payload that we're sending out there, you can see the whole history is there for user assistant, user. But the streaming is set to false. So one thing that would make this a little bit better is like if I asked it to write me a 4-paragraph summary of Homer's Odyssey, it might take a moment for that to happen. And using streaming, we could get some of that information back before it's entirely complete, which would be really just a better, I think, user interaction, user experience, being able to see stuff coming out as it's available. So, yeah. All right, and then I'll take some time for questions. And test my presentation. Thunderous applause. The end.